It's been a while since I had one to log in the Florida Fascism Nexus playlist, which I have. And like we were just covering news from Florida like every week for a while, it felt like, the Don't Say Gay bill and, trying to curtail trans people's access to medical care, including adults. So that's what we're going to revisit today. So exciting. Wow, isn't that so wonderful? This is hot goss off the presses that trans adults, I guess, are like there's been a very strong move to prevent trans adults from accessing healthcare. Like the thing that was happening before was that a basically they were just declaring this is the same bill. Okay, cool. It's going into effect now. So we covered this a while ago because it was like I wasn't even sure if it was a bill or if it was just that they decided unilaterally that Medicare or sorry, Medicaid, right? No. Yes? Yes, Medicaid is the one for poor people. Medicaid was just like not required to cover trans related health care anymore because they just like declared that it wasn't real health care, basically. Like it's not medically necessary. Because that's the thing about public health options is that they only cover things that are very like explicitly medically necessary. And they were just like, we've decided that we don't care how much distress your gender dysphoria causes you. We're not going to cover the health care. So we're covering this again because Aaron Reed has posted trans adults being cut from care after Florida court ruling. So a court ruling from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals allowed an anti-trans law in Florida targeting youth and adults to go back into effect, and many providers were forced to end care. So this is a ruling from the Court of Appeals. So this is from the Circuit Court, which means that if this gets challenged further, it's going up to the Supreme Court, which is great. We love that. A majority Trump-appointed panel issued this ruling. The court ruled that a 2023 law which restricts trans care at any age can go back into effect after being permanently blocked just a couple months ago in June. Yeah, we've listened to ourselves and decided we should take our own advice over that of doctors. Exactly. The ruling was released late Monday, so just a couple days ago, stating that trans people are not a quote quasi-suspect class, meaning they do not receive the same level of equal protection under the Constitution as other categories such as race, ethnicity, religion, or sex. This decision implies that laws discriminating against trans people are likely to be considered valid and constitutional in other cases in the 11th Circuit Court. One such law, SB 254, passed in 2023. The law banned gender-affirming care for trans youth, but went further than similar legislation passed in several Republican-led states that year by also restricting care for trans adults. The bill mandated that care for trans adults could only be provided by physicians and required patients receive forms outlining the quote risks of gender transition. Yeah, so this did already pretty heavily limit trans adults' access to care because the majority of people who get their trans care have it given to them by a registered nurse practitioner. But this required that you go to a doctor. And of course, this is just stressing the what is a quasi-suspect class? I don't know. I mean, I guess they're saying like it's a class that is technically covered by one of these other things but isn't actually covered according to them. But yeah, so like this already, at least I know at least one person in Florida who was temporarily unable to get access to medical care, like they lost access to their hormones because it was being prescribed by a registered nurse practitioner. And so, yeah, you're just going to continue burdening the medical system by requiring that I go to a capital D doctor. But now they don't have to worry about that because they're just, I guess, like making it illegal in general. Like, or is this just this part of the law is going into effect now? Yeah, so the physician requirement has proven especially burdensome for trans adults as the majority of their care is provided by nurse practitioners. The number of trans adults far exceeds the capacity of physicians who offer gender affirming care. Planned Parenthood, the largest hormone therapy provider in the U.S., explains, quote, most gender-affirming hormone care is provided at PPSP by advanced practice providers, such as physician assistants, certified nurse midwives, and nurse practitioners in our health centers or over telemedicine. With the law fully in effect, trans adults who previously had access to care are being notified that their care will no longer be provided. One anonymous patient shared an email from their provider which stated, "Unfortunately, Florida has reinstated the ban on care for minors and the restrictions for adults. We can no longer see any patient of any age who is located in Florida." Presumably because this place doesn't have like a capital, wait, Dr. Izzy, wait, why can't you, if you're a capital D doctor, why can't you see okay, so they're banning care for minors, period, and keeping the restrictions for adults. But so if minors will need to travel to a state without a ban. Patients 18 and over can travel to any other state except Alabama under age 19. Why? Why can't you? It's supposed to be just the nurse practitioner thing. It says Dr. Izzy Lowell. Do you not have a doctor to provide this care? Spectrum, a major provider in Florida, was also forced to terminate care and cancel new patient appointments. However, during the period when the law was blocked, the organization reportedly took steps to ensure patients were well supplied with medication in case the law went back into effect. So basically, they just gave them prescriptions that were more than they necessarily needed so that they could, like, save it and, like, hold and, like, have a bit of a backup. So this actually is under the purview of a case that is going to be seen by the Supreme Court. Ostensibly, they could rule on this as early as like October, but Josie on the Transatlantic Call-In show, who she works with the Democratic Party and knows a lot about this stuff, she said that it was likely that we wouldn't see judgment on this until June next year, or maybe even July next year, because there's a Tennessee trans care ban. Aaron says, if the Supreme Court were to rule that trans people are not entitled to equal protection under the law, many forms of discrimination against trans youth and adults could be deemed fully legal. So basically, we are waiting for the Supreme Court to drop their decision on, like, do trans people have the right of equal protection under the law, or do we just not? Are we just like an exempt group from equal protection under the law? Mitternacht and I are here to ask you to hit like on the video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe. Click the bell if you feel like it. You don't have to, though. Feel free to check out the other links in the description because I sell merch like this cute tank top. I'm running a GoFundMe to try to move 2,000 miles across the country to a place where I have rights. And I have a Patreon he's smashing his face against my face. Yeah, this is really similar to the TRAP laws, targeted restrictions on abortion providers, which were used to restrict abortion before the Dobbs decision. They did stuff like force doctors to read misinformation to patients and regulate hallway width in clinics to wider than they knew existed in most Planned Parenthoods. Normies will ignore this. Republicans will do this to go under the radar and restrict our rights and normalize attacks against our healthcare. Yeah, I actually think I know of a Planned Parenthood location that closed because it was in a more traditional commercial building and did not have, they ruled that the hallways needed to be wide enough for two gurneys to pass by each other. And of course, most like commercial buildings have like normal size hallways. Like maybe they're a little bit wider than the ones you would see in most houses, but yeah, they just come up with these like sneaky roundabout ways to cancel healthcare. So yeah, by being like, well, you can only get healthcare if it's from a medical doctor, an MD physician, and not a nurse practitioner, then yeah, that's one way to like get around this. It's what's surprising to me is that there are clinics that are just like, we're not going to provide this care at all anymore, even though I'm pretty sure the law doesn't say that trans adults are not allowed to get this health care, period. Yeah, if we elect Harris when the Supreme Court legally classifies us as second-class citizens, she will shake her finger very hard at them. We can hope that more gets done than that, but it just seems like the judiciary has decided that it's going to ignore the concept of balance of power and is just going to like basically neuter the executive branch on their ability to put in any form of protections, really. So this decision is actually coming from a panel. Who is speaking here? The organizations representing the plaintiffs in this case said, quote, "We are deeply disappointed by this decision and the panel's disregard for the district court's careful findings and adherence to the 11th Circuit's recent precedent." So the 11th Circuit Court already decided that this law is not okay 2 months ago. And this panel, what does that even mean? This panel? Who is on this panel? is that like, and why is there a panel that can override the 11th Circuit's precedent? This is like a panel coming from the 11th Circuit. So following a ruling from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Okay, I don't really understand how like the 11th Circuit previously decided that this law couldn't go into effect, but now it can. I don't really get it. Mama says, I want Republican fears to come true. I want them all forcibly removed from the power in the judiciary, the legislature, and executive. I want them and their ideology gone root and stem. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I agree. Societies exist to benefit everyone or else they have no purpose. It just seems like, yeah, they're incompatible with like the purposes of having a fucking society and a government cohesively anyway. But this quote from the plaintiffs or the organizations representing them says, allowing these discriminatory restrictions to go back into effect will deny trans adults and adolescents life-saving care, prevent Florida parents from making medical decisions that are right for their children. So I guess there was a district court that's not the circuit appeals court. I'm guessing that the district is a smaller area than the circuit court of appeals. Anyway, so the district court found, based on voluminous evidence, the record shows that these extraordinary restrictions were based on disapproval of trans people and serve no purpose other than to harm trans Floridians. So yeah, it just seems like this is going to, like, I doubt that this particular case is going to make it to the Supreme Court, but we already have one from Tennessee regarding whether trans people have the right to like equal protection under the law. And I think in that case, it's like, if you will give cisgender children hormone blockers for precocious puberty, but you will not give transgender children puberty blockers for gender identity related reasons, then that is not equal protection under the 14th Amendment. So yeah, we will see as early as October and as late as July next year, like an official statement from this conservative leaning Supreme Court on whether trans people have a right to like equal protection under the law. And you know, of course, the particular case is just going to impact healthcare, but the precedent that is set could potentially impact every area of life in which trans people, like, you know, basically it could become legal to deny trans people jobs or to deny trans people housing. Like, if we are not entitled to equal protection, that like opens up a lot of negativity here. Leaning, well, you know, it's not a fully conservative court. There are a few non-conservative justices, but like, yeah, we have a conservative majority for sure. Is this what they needed Chevron out of the way to do? I don't think that this has much to do with Chevron, this particular case, but yeah, who knows? Like, removing the Chevron doctrine is going to have such widespread implications that it hardly bears thinking about. Well, cool. That's going to be great. I'm so excited. Thank you to the patrons, especially Bo E, Hapax Legomenon Patient Advocate, Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvag, Sarah A, Jack, Amanda B, Michelle Frateroli, Michelle Winter, Wellington Marcus, Danielle McDonald, Suzanne Maynard, DZXN, Jamie Jam, Nova, Sojo, Past Null Infinity, Elizabeth Bartell, Jericho, Athiet, Desi Quiche, Celeste, Mr. Atheist, Liam Hodgson, Kevin Young, and Ella V. Nobody.